Well, trick or treat, smell my feet, give me something good to eat. Well, guess what, folks? It is after the trade deadline, and it's pretty fitting that on Halloween, the Pittsburgh Steelers continued to live in their fears and not do anything at the trade deadline. And how fitting is it that our opponent, a longtime rival of ours, who we have a lot of history against, or in the market to get rid of their top receiver, and we were the favorites to land that receiver, and we did nothing about it. Good Wednesday morning, everybody. I am Mac, back with another video. As always, do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe. Follow on Instagram, link in the box below, as this is my Week 9 preview between the Tennessee Titans and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let me just get this out of the way. I hate Thursday games. Outside of opening night of the NFL, where that's always a Thursday game, and Thanksgiving games, I've always hated Thursday games. Short weeks suck. It barely gives any opponents, it barely gives time for any opponents to get ready because football is a contact sport. And as if Thursday games couldn't get any more meaningless and pointless for me, Jeff Bezos just has to get his ego in the way and have games be on Amazon Prime now for Thursday night games, which is just ridiculous. You should not have to pay to watch your local team play. I mean, how many billions of dollars does Jeff Bezos have already? I mean, seriously, the guy makes more in a single minute than I'm probably going to make in my entire life. But now that that's out of the way, as I said at the beginning, Steelers did nothing at the trade deadline. Need a lot of secondary help, more specifically at the safety spot, because Minkah Fitzpatrick ain't going to play in this game. He suffered a hamstring injury on Sunday against Jacksonville. DeMonte Kazee, outside of the interception that he had, played awful, where he was beat on the edge on that touchdown reception by Travis Etienne. And of course, JPJ gets most of the crap for it, which is why I say lay off of him. Missed a lot of tackles and was basically just a walking target for a lot of Trevor Lawrence's plays. And that's just what the Steelers safeties have been all season. And yet, we continue to do nothing about it. And it takes Mike Tomlin, mid-Tomlin as I call him, halfway into the season for him to realize, you know what, Levi Wallace is trash. I'm going to bench him. And let's start JPJ. Yeah, there's something all right for you. It only took you halfway through the season to realize it, when you don't have to be a freaking brain surgeon to realize that. Whereas our opponent in Tennessee, they're coming off a really strong outing against the Atlanta Falcons, who have a top 5 defense in the league, who I'm going to get to their rookie quarterback in just a little bit. But my point is, why do we continue to shy away from getting the kids out there? Broderick Jones, you don't put him in at left tackle unless Dan Moore's hurt. Darnell Washington, I have barely seen him at all this season. Keanu Benton, when he's been in there, he's been plugging up the holes with the run game. Nick Herbig, I'm sorry. He's had a couple of glimpses here and there, but has Tomlin been consistent with starting him? Absolutely not. I just don't understand Tomlin at this point, man. I really don't. I haven't understood him the whole season. Like, in order for this offensive line to be any better, because this O-line just continues to be decrepit, they continue to underperform, they continue to be underwhelming, move around the O-line a little bit and get a blocker going. Which is why I keep hollering, get Broderick Jones in at left tackle, and at this point, get Nate Herbig in at left guard. Isaac Seumalo's been a very big disappointment this year. And it's not like it's an easy pass rush we're going up against, because Tennessee has one of the best pass rushes in the league this year. Their front has been phenomenal with stopping the run, pressuring the quarterback, and causing bad decisions for the quarterback in the pocket. You look at Harold Landry, you look at Simmons, you look at Key, you look at Shire. It's a big mismatch against our O-line right there. and it's looking like a big $42 million mistake with James Daniels and Isaac Seumalo on that right side, because as I keep emphasizing, that right side has been bullied all season long. Their linebacking core, like I said, with the pass rush, it complements it real well because they know how to stop the run efficiently, and where we're doomed as far as our game plan on offense goes, where we have to mix up the run game. We have to have Najee Harris be the same kind of runner that Jaylen Warren is, but that's asking for a handful at this point because we know that ain't going to happen. This O-line can't open up any kind of holes for them, and when they do, Najee's constantly missing him. Why are you not having Jaylen Warren be your RB1? It cannot do any worse going up against this linebacking core that the Tennessee Titans have. That's already a really big mismatch going forward with this game. And then you take a look at the quarterback matchup for this one, which in my opinion at this point, I'm calling that a mismatch as well. Kenny Pickett, he's only had, 1-2 touchdown pass game in his entire career. And this is why, I know I got a lot of hate on my Monday morning video that I made about Kenny Pickett, but I put it out there for a reason. And you see, at this point I'm saying it, all you Kenny Pickett stans, this is why I said all offseason and why I said at the beginning of the season, I ain't holding this guy's hand anymore. My exact words were, I ain't holding his baby hands anymore. Knock on wood. Joke. Alright? I ain't holding his hand anymore, and I ain't giving him the training wheel routine anymore. He's a second-year starter. He's had more than enough time to improve his mechanics. He's had more than enough time to up his play style, and I just don't see it with him. Yes, he's had a couple of good throws here and there, and yes, he had that game-winning drive against the Baltimore Ravens, but don't lie to yourself, guys. That game-winning drive against the Ravens was thanks large in part because Baltimore's receivers were dropping passes all game long. The Steelers won that game because of the defense, because of Baltimore's missed opportunities they had. They easily left 2 to 3 touchdowns off the board for that game, and you know it. And the Steelers won that game in spite of the offense. They didn't win that game because of the offense, and you know it. Plain and simple. He's still underthrowing everybody. His reads are still incredibly late, like last Sunday where it was evident, where he undershot a wide open George Pickens, where he missed Deontay Johnson in the end zone by about 3 seconds that should have been an easy touchdown, and he's still forcing passes like he did against Jacksonville, like he did against Baltimore even, like he did against LA, and like he did last Sunday. If I haven't mentioned it already, I probably did, but he was forcing passes where he threw it behind the receiver. I don't remember who it was to. It was probably Pickens, and the Jaguars dropped an easy interception. Kenny Pickett should have about 5 to 6 more interceptions than his 4 that he has this year, and you know it. That's why I'm saying I ain't holding his hand anymore. The only benefit of the doubt I am giving him is that he has a trash offensive line and the worst play caller in the NFL. That's it. Other than that, a lot of the mistakes are on him. Does he have throws to where they could have been executed? And does he have small glimpses that he can be an above average to decent starter? Yes, he does. But is he consistent with it? No, he's not. You also throw in the no added production, only 1-2 touchdown game, and he is just not progressing, and he is just showing that ever since that Vegas game, where in my opinion it was the best game of his career, at least so far, he is taking steps backwards. And you know it. And in my opinion, he shouldn't even be playing on Thursday night. You want to know who I think should be playing Thursday? Mason Rudolph. He has never been given a fair shot to show what he really has over here in Pittsburgh. He has never been given a fair chance to show that maybe he can be at best a serviceable backup for us. And I feel for him. I don't know what he did to earn the shackles from this coaching staff, but Kenny Pickett is starting tomorrow night. He has said that he is, quote, for sure playing when he's injured, and this is now the second time this year that he's playing when he shouldn't be playing because he's injured, which I'll get into Mike Tomlin in a little bit. But this is now the second time that Mike Tomlin has done this to Kenny Pickett. Mitch Trubisky, we all know, is an absolute bum. Guy don't even belong in the NFL. Threw 2 picks against Jacksonville, should have been 3. One of them was dropped at the last second. So I say, what's the harm in putting in Mason Rudolph for Thursday night? What's the harm? Why are you stalling putting him in? Why are you still not giving him his chance? He cannot do any worse than Trubisky at this point. And honestly, he cannot do any worse than Kenny Pickett at this point. I mean, after all, this is a guy who's been with us since 2018. He's the longest tenured quarterback on this team. That's crazy to say considering we've had Big Ben for almost 20 years. So I say, what's the harm? Let's see what Mason Rudolph can do against Tennessee. Because, hey, that's what the Titans did. Ryan Tannehill wasn't getting the job done. And if you want to go all the way back to 2019, or 2018, 2019, whenever it was when they got Ryan Tannehill, they were like, you know what, Marcus Mariota ain't cutting it for him. Let's put in Ryan Tannehill. Let's see what he's got. Leads the Titans to the AFC Championship game. And now 4 years later, oh, Ryan Tannehill's hurt. We're not just going to sit on our hands and knees and wait for, him to get healthy because we know for sure that he's the starter. Let's give this kid Will Levis his chance. What does he do? He has already doubled Kenny Pickett's production in one start. He's coming off a 4-touchdown pass game for 238 yards, a 130.5 QB rating, and all 4 of them touchdowns, they weren't just little dinks and dunks and little slants and sideline shots to the back corner of the end zone. They were big chunk plays. And this pass defense that is severely undermanned coming into tomorrow night is doomed if we cannot get anything going at safety. Because this pass defense, while they have come up with some good turnovers, that's another thing I'm going to get into in a little bit. While they have come up with some turnovers here and there, they've also allowed a lot of big chunk plays. And seeing how Will Levis has almost no tape on him and how he has no game plan against him so far, that screams a big mismatch, especially when we don't have Minkah Fitzpatrick for this game, more likely than not. What the hell are we going to do with the defensive backs? And this is why Mike Vrabel, in my opinion, is already a million times better than Mike Tomlin. Because Mike Vrabel leads his team well when it comes to a defensive, favored-oriented team like us. They did trade Kevin Byard to Philly, but they did get some good returns for it. With former Steeler Terrell Edmunds coming back tomorrow night. They got Hooker as well. So, Mike Vrabel can get the most out of his defense. And he meets the moment when it comes to defense versus offense. The Titans, they'll never be truly terrible as long as Ryan Tannehill's there. But they will always at least be in the playoff hunt. And they will always at least be in the talks as long as Mike Vrabel's there. I think Mike Vrabel is a phenomenal coach, and he's done a really good job given what he has. Because you take a look at who they have up with the defense and who Will Levis has at his disposal, it's always going to be Derrick Henry, who's the cream of the crop of the team. It doesn't look like the Titans are going to move on from him, and he's going to stay. While he hasn't really been King Henry this year, he's still really solid, and he's still not to be taken lightly, at all. And he's coming off a 100-yard game against Atlanta. And then, of course, you got DeAndre Hopkins. D-Hop had no touchdown passes entering last Sunday. He had 3 touchdown receptions from Will Levis on Sunday. AKA, he has more touchdown receptions in a Titans uniform in half a season than Deontay Johnson's had in a year and a half since getting paid. And that has to be a big confidence booster for Tennessee, seeing how this defense is ranked 30th. All that money that you spent in the offseason, all that money that you spent on corners, all that extension money that you gave to Minka, all that draft capital that you used to get JPJ just to have the 30th ranked defense, that money that you gave Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt just to get the 30th ranked defense. Yes, I know Tennessee's offensive line is still injured as well, and they're going up against, one of the best pass rushes in the league. But hey, that's what we all said in week 4 against Houston, where the Texans were down 5 linemen. At least 4 linemen. I think it was 5, though. We got no sacks on the Texans, and CJ Stroud lit us up. So are we looking at a repeat of week 4? This could honestly be worse than week 4, because at least week 4 we had a full week to rest. Now we only have 4 days to rest. So it's like, what are we going to do? As far as anything defensively goes, what are we going to do with offense? What are we going to do, period, against this team? I mean, I know it's so cliche to sit down here and say, well, the defense has to come up big, the pass rush has to come up big, oh, we have to mix up the run game as far as the offense goes. We know that ain't going to happen. Because this is where I'm getting into Mike Tomlin and his so-called press conference that he had on Monday. When he was asked about the turnovers that we had against Jacksonville, we had 3 turnovers. That game was incredibly winnable for us, and we blundered it away thanks to our non-existent offense. So when he was asked about the defense with the turnovers that we got, he has the gall to stand up there and say, the turnovers weren't big advantages because they weren't in the proper position where the offense could take advantage of it. Dude, fuck you. Fuck you, Tomlin. That is such a passive-aggressive jab at the defense that I'm bleeding on the inside. How are you going to stand up there and say that those 3 turnovers weren't a big deal? It's like, oh, great job, defense, that you got 3 turnovers, but could you have done it inside our own red zone to where we could score quickly and not tire out the defense? How about you just be happy that this trash, overrated defense was able to come up with a turnover at all? Wow, man. You look at all these players in the league that always sit back and constantly say, I'd love to have Mike Tomlin as my head coach. Really? You want to have Tomlin as your head coach where he's just going to downplay turnovers that your defense gets against a high-octane offense and against a top 10 QB in the league like Trevor Lawrence? That's who you want as your head coach? How about you sit back, stop crying and bitching about the officials, Pittsburgh Steelers, and look more at the fact that A, one of the Jags players took a terrible towel from the stands and waved it around when they locked up the game against us, and B, take a look at yourselves for not executing. And you have no time to feel sorry for yourselves now, and I certainly don't have time to feel sorry for you. I don't feel sorry for you guys at all, because this is your own fault right here. You have no time to feel sorry for yourself because you play Thursday night with limited practice time and limited rest. Granted, you do have a mini bye coming up afterwards, but you got no time to pity and wallow in self-defeat. You have went from a team that nobody wants to play to now a team that where everyone's like, oh, these guys just cry about the officials. Guys, did you not forget that the officials pretty much gave Kenny Pickett a first down the week before? Officials make mistakes and they have bad calls every week. Stop blaming the officials. We don't care. Yes, that was a terrible pass interference call on James Pierre. Yes, that roughing the passer call was absolute horseshit. But that ain't the reason we lost the game. The reason we lost the game is because, as usual, you did not execute. Plain and simple. Oh, we don't fear challenges. We don't fear making mistakes. Yeah, right, Mike. If you don't fear challenges, how come you entertain the idea of moving around TJ Watt and Highsmith on the pass rush, but you don't entertain the idea of moving around and mixing up your O-line a little bit more? How come you don't entertain the idea of getting a new fucking offensive coordinator that can come up with a good game plan so these slow starts can not determine the outcome? Because that's another stupid thing you said. Oh, the slow starts don't determine the outcome of the game. Really, they don't determine the outcome of the game. So 4 straight 3-and-outs to start the game don't determine the outcome of the game. When your offense is stalling, slow start after slow start after slow start, not just one game, but it is nearly every single week. And you have the balls to stand up there and say the slow starts don't determine the outcome and that you don't fear challenges. Like I said at the beginning, pretty fitting the trade deadline was on Halloween because you're afraid of making changes to this team. Make it make sense. But that's our opponent, Tennessee. They're chippy. They're feisty. They play hard for their head coach. They will run through a wall through Mike Vrabel. They will pound the ball down your throat with Derrick Henry. And they got a new shot of adrenaline right now with a young rookie quarterback in Will Levis, who's looking to make a great first impression in the league, and he's off to a great start. If he can do that against a top 5 defense in Atlanta, no telling what he's going to do against this crippled defense going into tomorrow night. Now you see, I am wearing my Color Rush TJ jersey. I don't know if we are wearing the Color Rushes tomorrow, and honestly, I don't care. But I'm telling you, and it seems like I say this every week, I'm not confident about this game. Titans have a lot of momentum coming in, and we're doing nothing to make this team better. We're really not. This is a far cry from what the Pittsburgh Steelers usually are. I think it's a terrible coaching mismatch. I think it's a terrible offense versus defense mismatch on both ends. I know the Titans haven't beaten us in a decade. The last time they did beat us was in Pittsburgh, where it was that Week 1 game where the Steelers actually had the quickest score in NFL history. Titans took the opening kickoff of the game back for a safety for us. You take a look at all the great matchups that the Steelers and Titans had back in the 70s, back when the Titans were in Houston as the Oilers. This is another great rivalry between the two, the Oilers and the Steelers of the 70s. Steelers upsetting the Oilers in the playoffs in '89. All the big games that they had in the 2000s, opening night of 2009 with Paul Mallow's one-handed pick. The list goes on and on. Even infamous moments in our history have come against Tennessee, like in '08, where the Titans crushed us in Nashville to get the number 1 seed over us. And those two jagoffs, Lendale White and Keith Bullock, stomped on the towel, and then Tennessee didn't even win a single game until like halfway through the following season. But the difference is, those Steeler teams got enraged when someone disrespected the towel. This team don't have that urgency whatsoever. Instead of saying, hey, one of the Jags players fucked with our towel, they're just going to cry about the refs. Steelers, you're on your own for tomorrow night. I can give you keys to victory. I can sit down here and say what you need to do. But if you want to sit back and cry about officiating, that's on you. Because that just shows what your excuse is for every loss. And that's really all I got to say. Nothing at the trade deadline. Mike, Tomlin, enjoy your 9-win season, sir. Because that's what you've officially settled for. With all the big moves that we made in the offseason, all the acquisitions that we made, and all the noise that we made in free agency before the season, you're just going to be content with a 9-win season, especially with how undermanned our secondary is coming into this game. That's what you're settling for. Whatever, man. Whatever. Anyway, let me know what you think down in the comments below. Steelers and Titans, I will not be streaming this game tomorrow night because it'll be during my work hours, and quite frankly, that might be a good thing for me because it saves me from raising my voice and hollering unnecessarily, but I will have a post-game out probably Friday morning or Friday night, depending on when I get it done. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. This is Mac, checking on out for the day. Have a good one, everybody. Go Steelers.